Hey you guys, happy Friday. Happy Friday. I'm trying to turn my volume down on my phone. How are you? I hope all is well. I'm so excited. I say that every Friday, right? Every Friday that I'm on, I say, I'm so excited. I'm trying to fix my screen. I am, though. I'm always excited to be here sharing and caring and serving, all of that. um, how was your day? Listen, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. For those of you who do not know who I am, Tamara Johnson. I am the founder, the creator of Make It Rise, rebuild intentionally and strategically for effectiveness. And we have a vision and mission. Our vision is to create a movement where we're changing the view of how society has defined marriage. And as I always say, I know that somebody is asking, okay, she's talking about how marriage should be, but at the same time, she's having this show, this series that talks about life after divorce. Well, I was married for 14 years, in that relationship for 20, right? And my thing was, divorce is not an option. We're never getting divorced, right? We get married, it's us till death do us part. But what I learned clearly is that it is an option. Divorce is an option, right? Just like there's a lot of other things that are an option. It was something that was on the table and we chose divorce, right? So my thing is, I want to have this show provide tools, tips, and all of those things with real people that have experienced some things, that's going to share some stuff that you are possibly going through right now and that you have gone through or maybe will be going through, just to show you that this is real life, right? But there's a way of handling it. So I do not support divorce. I am not an advocate for divorce, but I advocate for healthy marriages. But before we can become healthy in a marriage, we must first understand that we have to be healthy individuals, right? And so when I talk about there being life after divorce, I want us to understand that there's a lot of work that have to be done with the individual in order for her or him to be that healthy woman or healthy man, so that when they do get into these relationships or they do get remarried, that they are happy, healthy, whole, and healed as a result of the work that they've done, right? And so that is why I said yes to God when he told me to go this route with the talk show talking about divorce. I also wrote 2 books about divorce. One is called Life After the D, Life After the Divorce, and then an anthology where I had 11 other ladies come alongside with me, hold my hand, and we all talked about the little pieces of our divorce, but really to focus on what we did in order to become healthy, healed, and whole, right? That's the main part. That's most important, that we are whole. It's great to be healed, right? Normally when we talk about being healed, that's what the people see, right? But when we talk about being whole, it's our response to, certain things. And so that's the walk that we're doing right now. So with that being said, I've been doing this Life After Divorce Men's Edition this is my second guest, Mr. Devon Roboto. I know I'm probably jacking his name up, but we have Mr. Devon that is going to come on. He's currently married, ladies. Well, I shouldn't say ladies, like ladies and gentlemen. He is married. So for those of you who may know him and, you may be questioning, like, wait a minute, life after divorce. No, he is still married. We're going to get into the meat of this thing so you guys can understand why I invited Mr. Roboto. Devon. I'm calling him Devon. His mama named him Devon. I'm going to call him Devon. So you guys, I'm going to go ahead and bring him in, have him join us. Mr. Devon.
What's happening? What's happening? What's happening?
Okay, did I butcher your name or what?
I had worse.
Okay, well, tell me how is it really pronounced?
Roboto.
Roboto. I said toe. Roboto.
Yeah, Roboto.
Okay, got you. But I'm gonna call you Devon for tonight. Okay.
That'll work.
All right. So how are you? Happy Friday. Happy Friday. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on tonight. I don't take it for granted. It's Friday. And I know you got a wife and kids and you can be doing a million other things, but you said yes. And what I always tell my guests that come on is you without even really knowing it, you signed up to help me push the vision, right?
Okay.
So I say thank you because your words are going to bring value to this platform. And so I appreciate it. So thank you so much for saying yes.
I appreciate the offer. I appreciate you having me join you guys.
Absolutely. So me and Devon, we met and we both spoke on a panel for my first male guest that was on a couple of weeks ago, Mr. Penn. He wrote a book called Intimacy Beyond the Bedroom. And that book is fire. It's amazing. There's a lot of tools and nuggets in it, you guys. Y'all go follow him, author Elton Penn. He's on both Facebook and Instagram, you guys. Go and grab that book. But we both spoke on that panel. I'm actually friends with his wife, and I met him for the first time a couple of months back last month in December.
Yep.
And just the things that he was speaking was manna, it was life. And so when I began to think about this here series and the men that I could, ask to be a part of, you were definitely one of the first that I thought about. And although I know you aren't divorced, you have been divorced. And so we're talking about, divorce, life after divorce, and some of the things that you did to become healed and to become whole, or maintaining that thing, So how long have you been married now, your current marriage?
We vastly approaching 2 years. 2 years. So our 2 year anniversary is right around the corner. About 2 weeks from now.
Nice. So y'all newlyweds. You're newlyweds. I love it.
Absolutely.
So in the marriage that the previous marriage, how long were you married then?
Almost 10. It was like 9.5 years. 9.5 years.
Okay. Okay. And so I definitely don't want to talk about the relationship. That is not my platform. I don't talk about relationships, so to speak. I want to talk about the things you did to get through, to heal, to, be able to, hold your head up and still walk and be the man that you know that you are, or become the man that you should be, or who you are today.
Right.
In that, going through the separation and then divorce, going through that process, did you have anyone that you could talk to? Like, who did you confide in?
Well, kind of in the beginning, like in the midst of the turmoil, it was kind of more so of like I found myself not trying to confide in nobody. You know what I mean? Just trying to like kind of bear that weight myself and trying to work through it myself, from the standpoint of you don't want everybody in your business. You know what I mean?
Right.
But as things kind of start getting darker and darker, it was like, okay, you can't kind of really bear this weight yourself. You got to kind of seek some help. You got to have some advisors. You know what I mean? Like if you're in some financial trouble, you seek some financial advisors. So if you're in some relationship trouble, you're gonna seek some advisors. You know what I mean?
Right.
And from that standpoint, I had certain individuals to where I kind of admired their relationships, to where I felt comfortable reaching out to them and asking them questions about, one of them was my uncle's, specifically. I've always admired one of my uncle's relationship with my auntie. So I kind of reached out to my uncle, like, hey, uncle, like, you know what I mean? How would you handle this particular situation, so on and so forth. And I actually also had a friend who was a pastor who was starting up a church. And he kind of led me to like, y'all need to start coming to church. Because at the time I was raised in the church.
Okay.
At the time I kind of got away from, the normal routine of going to church and reading the scripture and things of that nature. And like a light bulb went off when I was talking to my friend who was a pastor. And I started taking my kids to church, and I was trying to take my ex-wife to church at the time, and she was completely against it. You know what I mean? Unfortunately. And or I should say, I don't know. Let's move on from that. But with that being said, it kind of opened my eyes to a few things, to where it's like, okay, she going against the grain, don't want to go to church. This is the avenue that I'm trying to take my family down, trying to be the head of the household and get them closer to God. And so that's so I would say that it was like reaching out to people that I felt that kind of been down that road before and getting me, some sound advice in regards to how to handle certain situations.
Got it. Got it. So what I hear you saying is that you actually tried for some time
Absolutely.
before you went through the process. And I also heard you say that, you had a relationship with God, you were going to church, you were raised in church, you knew the scripture, but you pulled away from that, right? How important would you say having God in the midst of or as the foundation of your marriage or of your relationship? How important would you say that is, especially when you're going through stuff? Because it's inevitable, right? So, to all of you who are married, who aren't married, newsflash, you are going to encounter some things, right? But we all have to have something that or someone that is going to help us sustain and go back to the roots. So how important would you say it is to include God in your relationship or marriage?
I would say that's number one. That's number one. You go God first, man second, is the wife, and then it's the kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's
thank
just the
you.
way that I was raised. And so
Yeah.
um
I like that. I like that
absolutely.
you gave that order because, oftentimes, and sometimes it's just pure ignorance. If you haven't been taught it, then you don't know it, right? If you
Right.
haven't been taught the order of, how it should go, then many times if it's husband, wife, kids, or husband, kids, and then myself, then God, right?
Right.
First of all, you're starting out of order. And so everything else is going to be out of order. It may look good on the front end of that thing, but eventually, right, you'll begin to see the fruits of that labor of you having things out of order. And it's just what the enemy wants. He want,
Absolutely.
he want us to think it's working, right? Just good enough to reel us in, good enough to reel us in. And then he says, okay, now go figure it out, right? So, but having God at the top, and this is what I've learned,
I'm sorry,
having,
I knocked my
it's okay,
note down.
having God at the top, and then, husband, wife, children, proper order, regardless to what happens, right? Going back to the foundation, going back to the top is what's going to help sustain. That's going to give us the strength, give us the wisdom and the information, and be led to the right people. Like you said, you went to your uncle who you admired their relationship, right? And was he a pastor, or that's the friend that was a pastor?
My it was my friend that was a pastor, but my uncle that I had confided in, though, he was a deacon in the church that I grew up in.
Okay. Okay. And it's important. I think it's important for us to have those people, those tangible people, right? Because when you go to somebody for something and they say, oh, just pray about it. I'm a firm believer in prayer. I'm going to tell you that. I will pray all day.
Tell me
However,
something I don't know. Tell me something I don't know. I know that
that
already.
part,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I know I can pray, right? But I need something tangible right now. Like, if I need something right now, what can you give me? Like, do you have a word for me? Can you share your experience? Because too often we are ashamed to share some things that we've gone through, but really it's that thing that's going to help us get up out of there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
But
that's good.
I think that kind of goes back to, I think in the black community, it's a saying that what goes on in this house stays in this house.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of like tugging at me, like, okay, I don't need to be telling nobody what's going on.
Yeah.
Kind of like dealing with the embarrassment of it. You know what I mean, or whatever the
Yeah.
situation may be. Nobody wants to have a failed marriage. You know what I mean? Um, and then on top of that, is I was cut from the cloth, or I am cut from the cloth, that there's certain things that you don't tell individuals that might be within your inner circle,
Yeah.
because we've all had it to where you got a friend that confide in you and tell you, like, oh, such and such, she do this or he do that, or she do this and he do that, and then a week later, y'all back lovey dovey. So you looking at the
Exactly.
homie like, oh, come on, bro. Like, you just told me, you know what I'm saying? So
Right.
it's
Right.
kind of, it's from that standpoint to where, okay, let me not say too much to nobody. Like, it's almost like, how much do you say to keep yourself from looking like a fool if you do decide to continue to move forward with this
Yeah.
relationship? You know what I mean?
That's good. That's good. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. we have to be wise, when we're sharing. Like you said, everything doesn't need to be shared, but you have to be wise with what you share and with whom you share it with, because sometimes that thing will come back to bite you. Yeah, I can tell you something about me and my husband, and now you feeling some type of way about him every time he come around, but I've forgiven him.
Right.
One plus one equals one in a marriage. So it's us, when he make a mistake and he look bad, guess what? Me too. When my husband fall, guess who else fall? Me, because I'm a team player like that, right? So when we go back to that order and we understand what marriage really was designed to look like and be, and know that the arithmetic on that thing is 1 + 1 = 1.
Right.
It's no, my husband did this, and so it's a we thing. So I really appreciate you even sharing that. Sometimes we shouldn't share everything. We got to be wise when we are doing that. So getting to the root of why I really invited you to come, like what really stood out for me when you were speaking on the panel at the book signing, you talked about going to counseling.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to tap into that because, as you said, in our community, it's not welcome. We don't talk about it. So I want to know, was counseling at the forefront of your mind, but because you had always been told to, what happens in our house stays in our house, you just didn't even consider it? Or was it not, you didn't think about it initially?
Initially, that was not a thought at all initially. I believe after me speaking with my friend who's a pastor, he was my first choice for counseling.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately at the time, my ex-wife, she was against it because she know that he's my friend. So she felt like he would have a biased opinion. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Because if I'm gonna seek counseling, I want it to be somebody who's counseling from the order of what God got set forth, not what man have set forth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I did my research and I found some family counseling that was like Christian based, you know what I mean? To where it's like, okay, they're still keeping things in the order of how it's supposed to be, in my opinion. And she was against it in the beginning. So I took a leap of faith.
Yeah.
To where I'm like, you know what? Okay, well maybe if I go, then she'll follow suit. You know what I mean? So that was my initial move to where like, okay, let me just step out to where she know that I'm serious about it.
Yeah, that's good.
She's against it to where like, okay, he playing, he ain't really trying to do no counseling or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to maybe a few sessions by myself, 2 or 3, and it was eye opening to me.
Okay.
It was uncomfortable in the beginning, extremely uncomfortable, because again, you telling your business to a complete stranger. You know what I mean? And it was, at the end of the day, it was eye opening. It was refreshing. That's probably the perfect word that I could use. That it was refreshing, because I would say that it was to know that you have all these thoughts in your mind. Am I right? Am I wrong? Am I making the right move? Am I making the wrong decision?
Yeah.
And somebody who this is their profession, and you kind of just like pouring your heart out to them. And this is like, unfortunately for me, that was like my last line. You know what I mean?
Okay.
That was like, I done gave it all I got. What do I got to lose? Let me try this.
Yeah.
In actuality, that probably should have been the first go-to.
That's good. That's good.
But for me, just because of the history of counseling, or seeing a shrink, or whatever the situation may be, whatever label you want to put on it. I mean, when I look back on a lot of things in my past, I probably should have had counseling as a kid. You know what I mean? My parents was divorced, so that was actually a thing that leading up to this, just to double back, not to be long-winded, but that was probably one of the reasons why I tried so hard in that particular relationship.
Let's hover right there. Let's hover right there. Right there.
Right.
That's it right there. I don't think we understand that the derivative of the majority of our issues in relationship and marriage goes all the way back to childhood.
Absolutely.
Right? And when we give ourselves permission to go back there, because oftentimes we don't want to go back there because A, it's uncomfortable,
Absolutely.
right? Like you said, going into counseling, I'm sure I know some of those questions, the questionnaire, the things they ask you, so they can get a feel of what is the root cause of this.
Mm-hmm.
They have to go deep. They have to ask you those questions, right? Too often we stay surface, and surface is only what we can see with the naked eye. But
Right.
when we go down into the stuff that we cannot see, right,
Mm-hmm.
it forces us to go back. Many times it has nothing to do with your current spouse. It has nothing to do with them, right? And once we get there, now we can change our lens. And hopefully, like you said, unfortunately, you went, that was your last thing. That was the last thing you tried.
Yeah.
But you tried it, and so I commend you for that. But imagine, and not just for you, for the viewers and anyone else that may come and look at this after, imagine, right, what changes can be made, the lens that can change as a result of you really just sitting down and giving yourself permission to dig deep into the why, right? We see the what, but what is the why and what is the real why? I had
Absolutely.
a conversation with somebody not too long ago, tonight, actually. And I was put in a position, and I always talk about looking in the mirror, look in the mirror at yourself and not out the window at other people, right? It's very easy to say that thing. It's very easy for us to tell people how to operate, how to do this. That's easy. But when you're emotionally attached to something,
Mm-hmm.
it's a little bit more challenging. So I'm sure you were able to tell people like, look, this is what you should probably do as it related to a relationship and marriage. But then when it came to you actually, doing it, putting it in action, it's challenging because now I'm faced with looking at me.
Right. Right. I mean, when, like you said, when you got to look in that mirror, sometimes you don't like what you see, and it's just it's the brutal reality.
Yeah.
It's the brutal reality of the situation. Nobody's perfect. When we make poor decisions, and we not satisfied with the outcome of the decisions that we made, we try to avoid them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the longer that
Absolutely.
you try to avoid them, the worse that the situation is gonna get. So I kind of made a decision to where I'm not gonna continue to turn a blind eye to the brutal facts that are right here in my face and try to figure out what we gonna do about it, how we gonna fix this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's good. And as the head, as the prophet, priest, king, the lead, the covering, all
Mhm.
of that, oftentimes we as the women, we're looking at y'all like, so what you gonna do, right?
Right,
And
right,
if it's something that you're saying you're gonna do that's outside of your usual character or some things that you usually wouldn't do, we are side eyeing you. Like you said, you were thinking she don't believe I'm gonna go, but I'm gonna go, right? And
right.
the reason was because you went and stuck with it because you did it for you. If you were
Yeah,
doing it,
I can't. Part of it was for me,
mm-hmm,
but to go back to what you were saying before,
mm-hmm,
divorce is frowned upon in the Christian community. I
mm-hmm,
was raised in a Christian church. I just always remember my grandma, saying certain things like, "No, you got to, stick with who God put you with." And I think for me, for myself, I was like, well, maybe I went against God's will. This ain't who I'm supposed to be with.
mm-hmm,
But at the end of the day, though, I said I'm gonna give it my all before I come to that conclusion on my own, and I'm gonna just give it to God and see
yeah,
where He leads me. So by me signing up to go do counseling, which was a faith-based counseling, it was a faith-based family counseling, to where
mm-hmm,
they just like they gave counseling based on the scripture, not based on what's man's idea of how things are supposed to be. That was important to me.
right,
I didn't want to go somewhere where he just like, oh no, like no, you tripping, or no, she crazy, or both of y'all
right,
tripping. What do the scriptures say? That
yeah,
that was important to me. So when
mm-hmm,
I found that, and going for a few different sessions, and they kind of like leading me toward the path, I'm like, okay, obviously it's a Christian based counseling session, they frown upon divorce as well. This particular gentleman told me, I've never told nobody to get a divorce before in all my years of counseling, but I don't think y'all need to be together.
Yeah.
And I still tried. I still tried because I'm like, okay, nah, I'm not just. He don't know all the ins and outs of it, you know. But to double back on what I was saying before of me seeing my parents separated, I knew how hard that was on me as a child. You know, and I was in my preteens when my parents separated. I was like 12, 13 years old.
Yeah.
So when that happened, I vowed that when I did get married and I got a family of my own and children of my own, I don't never want to put my children through the same hurt that I went through. And I think that's one of the reasons why I stuck it out for so long and tried to make it work, because I was trying to avoid my children from having that same pain that I went through. But it came to a point to, it's like, well, which is the worst? My children seeing an example of a relationship, or them dealing with a situation to where like, okay, we with mommy this weekend, or we with daddy this weekend, or however the situation may be. Just a little keynote for any male viewers that's out there going through baby mama drama. I got full custody of all three of my kids from my previous relationship. So if you really want to have a relationship with your kids, I don't want to hear your excuses, bro. Go to court and fight for your kids, bro.
That's good.
They need you in their life. Your boys and your girls, they need you in their life, bro. All these females out here with daddy issues, bro, your daughters need you, bro. Go get your kids, bro. If you know your baby mama crazy, your baby mama tripping, or whatever the situation may be, go get your kids, bro. Go get your kids. I can't tell you how many days I had to take off of work, or how many times that I had to call off and was in fear of losing my job. I said, God gonna make a way, because my kids gotta be with me.
Ooh. That's good. That's good. I thank you so much for taking the time to just tap in right there to the men, right? Because too often we women, right? We aren't giving y'all enough credit. And we're calling you everything but a good father, right? And it's because of like you said, sometimes there is daddy issues, right? Heck, sometimes it's mama issues because of some of the things they've heard mama say about daddy, right? You saying to them, no excuses. That is what this show is all about. Removing the excuse, no matter what. I don't care what it looks like. This show is to remove all excuses. It's to encourage you, to push you, to challenge you to do the work that it's going to take to get whatever that thing is that you want. In this situation, your kids, as you said, men, your kids need you in their lives. It starts as children, as we were just saying. If you pouring into them, right? Them being a productive husband, wife, citizen, employee, entrepreneur, it all begins as a child, when they were a child. You are the first example for them. Show them how to do whatever those things you are requiring the world, society, God, the word is requiring them to be. You are the example. So I thank you so much, Devon, for saying that. And you're right. When you really want to do it, like you said, you know, dang near lost your job, but you was like, you know what? I got to do what I got to do for my babies. Absolutely. And God is going to make a way. He will make provision, right? You have the vision. He'll make provision. He'll make a way as long as we are being obedient to what and how he tell us to do it. So thank you so much. I respect you for that.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Yeah. So when you and you know what, before I move forward with the next question, you talked about watching your parents and how it affected you and how it will affect the children. So I have a little story to share as well. I remember being, I don't know if I was like 10, 9, 10, maybe 11. I remember it like it was yesterday. My mom told me that she and my dad were going to separate. And when I say I cried so hard, like I've never cried that hard, right? But all I remember is they never did. They never separated. And I personally believe that it's because of the hurt that she saw, you know, from me.
Yeah.
So they decided to hang in there. But on the flip side of that, at what 32, 33 years old, I learned that okay, they are really separating, right? So this years later.
They just didn't tell you.
Well, no, at that time, while I was 30, it affected me more then than it
Okay.
than when I was 10.
Yeah,
Like children are resilient. They'll pop back. At
absolutely.
31, 32 years old, I blamed myself. I said the reason that they stayed together for over 20 years because of my selfishness. I
Right,
blamed myself. I literally went to my pastor and I shared that with him. And he had to break that thing down to me so that I can understand that it's not my fault. It was a choice that they made. And sometimes when people love you that much, those are choices that they make, right? And whether it's a good choice or a bad choice, but he said, I want you to focus on the love that they had for you. They shared a love that they thought it was worth it, right?
right.
So don't beat yourself up, so to speak. But yeah, it's amazing how what you just said and how I feel and what I believe as far as showing your children to hang in there and stay with somebody that you really aren't happy with. You're going through all of these things, but you're in it for the children. I think that's the worst reason to stay in a relationship. And I say it all the time.
I absolutely agree with you. I 100% agree with that last statement that you made. Because again, is it worse or is it better? Like, okay, mommy and daddy together, but all they do is fight. All they
Right.
do is argue and scream.
So
You
what are
know
you
what I mean?
teaching them?
Like, I'll give you an example of I got 5 kids. 3 from my previous relationship, 2 from my new marriage. So with that being said, I have to tell my kids all the time, from the oldest to the baby. The babies is watching y'all. They watch I don't know if a lot of people understand this, but the youngest in the family, when you got multiple children, they watch their older siblings more than they watch the parents, as far as
Mm-hmm.
from they day-to-day behaviors. Yes, they do watch their parents too, but they pick up a lot of different little nuances and stuff from how they
Yeah.
siblings do things, because they see that they closer in age. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I tell my older kids, watch what you do around your younger siblings, like especially my boys, right? I got 3 boys, 2 girls. My girls is the oldest and the youngest. So my 3 boys, I tell my oldest son, you gotta watch the way that you react to certain situations. Watch the way that you maneuver. Watch the way you conduct yourself around your little brothers, because they watch you more than they watch me, because they feel like they relate to you more. You they brother. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm issuing out discipline, checking homework, doing this, that, and the third. They looking up to you because they want to be where you at. You know?
Yeah.
So it's very important. Like, it's just so many different dynamics. Like, parenthood don't come with a handbook. I've heard it so many different times. I don't treat none of my kids the same. People look at me different, like what you mean you don't treat them the same? No, I don't treat them the same,
Stay
because
right there. That's
all
good.
5 of them got different personalities, so I
That's
should
it.
treat them the same. Like, my youngest daughter, she 3 going on 4. I can just tell her that I'm disappointed in her, and she gonna start crying.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, no,
Mm-hmm.
daddy don't like when you do that, baby. Make sure you don't do that no more. That makes daddy really sad. She gonna start crying. I can't do
Yeah.
that with my 13-year-old. He gonna look at me like, all right, okay, daddy. You know what I mean? Right?
Right.
Like, I
Right.
gotta come at him from a different angle. We gotta
Right.
have, like, he's 13 now, right?
That's good.
He probably liking girls now, smelling himself or whatever. We gotta
Yeah.
have a man-to-man conversation. I gotta talk
Right.
to you about the same type of stuff I was going through at 13, to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that you don't go down them same pitfalls. So,
Yeah.
all of that stuff kind of go hand in hand.
It does. It does. Man, that's good. That's good stuff. Somebody need to hear that. Somebody need to follow that, use that.
Absolutely.
Um, so when you did go to counseling and you were in this thing on a regular, did you share with friends and family? And then what was their response? Because we know the negative connotation that comes from I'm going to counseling in our community. Like, what was their response?
I think initially that I wouldn't say I was hiding it. I didn't make a point to, like, not tell people, but I
Mm-hmm.
didn't make a point to, like, go around just telling everybody, like, hey man, I'm signed up for counseling, right? But I think the first person that I probably shared it with was my mom. I think my mom was the first person that I shared that I was going to counseling with, and it was probably from a standpoint of that particular relationship had a lot of turmoil when it came to my relationship with my mom. because my
Mm.
mom saw a lot of things that I was turning a blind eye to and was ignoring, and she trying to like kind of like, hey son, like, I ain't telling you how to live your life or whatever, but that ain't cool, or this particular situation that wasn't supposed to go like that, or you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like my
Yeah.
mom was telling me like, this relationship is unhealthy for you, son. I want to see you
Mm.
happy. Not so much that I don't like her, but
Right.
what I'm seeing is not healthy for you. And at the end
Yeah.
of the day, that's my mama. She gonna, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
She's looking out for you.
exactly, as she
Mhm.
should. So with that being said, my mom probably was first, and then my friend who's a pastor, I probably reached out to him and talked to him about it, and it was kind of because in the beginning I really wasn't all the way 100% trusting the advice or the information that I was getting from the counselor. So I
Okay.
was kind of take that information and double back with my buddy who was a pastor to where like, okay, is this like lining up? Like how you feel about this information that he gave me? And he just like, bro,
Mhm.
like what do you feel in your heart? He was like, it
Yeah.
don't matter what I tell you. It don't
Yeah.
matter what I tell you because I'm a man just like you. So what do you feel in your heart? And he's like, you just kind of delaying the inevitable, bro. Like
Yeah.
you know how you feel about the situation, and I think at the end of the day, me going to counseling, I went into counseling with hopes that it would get better, but in the back of my mind, in the bottom of my heart, I kind of just already knew that it was like it was over. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
for my own sanity and for my own peace of mind,
You
I
wanted to
needed
try.
to know that I did everything in my power to make this work before I just called it quits.
That's good. That's good. And so I was to that end, I was going to ask you, although you went in with the intent of, working on your marriage and it, being in a better place, it actually didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
But do you regret going because it didn't work? So do you regret going? And like, what did you as an individual, what did you receive from that? Because you went in with one mindset, but I'm sure you came out some other way.
I don't regret it at all. Um, Actually, I encourage anybody. Like, I don't care if you think you the perfect person and you feel like you ain't got no problem. This is normal. This is usual. Whatever it may be. Going to counseling. If you with a good counselor, because all counselors ain't good. Let's be clear about that.
Yeah,
Um, but if you with a good counselor that's gonna dive in and tap in and like kind of help you get through whatever issues, they might uncover some issues that you ain't ready to uncover because you ain't even know
uh,
that was there. You know what
yes,
I mean? So with that being said, I'm glad I went to counseling. It opened my eyes to a point to where shortly after I put my children in counseling because it opened my eyes to me understanding that
mm,
I had some issues that was like rooted from my childhood.
hmm,
So it made me like, you know what? I'm seeing this situation with my kids. Like my
yeah,
kids are going through a similar situation of what I went through. Their parents are separating. Although I look at it as it's a better situation of them not seeing the turmoil that was involved with their mom and their dad in that relationship. For
hmm,
them, they missing their mom or
yeah,
they missing their dad or
yeah,
whatever the situation may be. The family is broken. That's trauma. We
yeah,
might turn a blind eye to it and just look at it like, oh, they kids, they'll get over it, or they
right,
young. Like my youngest at the time, he was like 3. You would think a 3-year-old is not gonna remember stuff like that, but they do.
yeah,
They do. So I,
yeah,
I found that me going to counseling opened my eyes to let me know that it was important for me to get my kids in counseling because your kids don't talk to you about everything,
right,
regardless of what you think. Is certain things that your kids are not going to talk to you about because they afraid or they worried about how you gonna react to it.
yeah,
You know what I mean? I tell all my kids you can talk to me about anything. Do you think they do that? No, absolutely
right,
not. Because they worried about, well, what are the ramifications going to be? How is
yeah,
dad going to react to certain things? So they choose not to talk to me about certain things. Like my
yeah,
kids come tell me certain stuff, but then they gonna want to go tell mommy about certain stuff, or they gonna want to wait till they talk to their grandma about certain
right,
stuff, or they gonna wait till they talk to the youth pastor about certain stuff. That's one of the best things that I will hold near dear to my heart, and I pass these things on to my kids. My grandma always told me it take a village to raise a child.
yeah,
And those are all individuals that I make sure that are a part of my children's village. Is not
right,
only their grandparents, teachers, youth pastors, uncles, aunties. That's a part of their village.
Right, right. And just like I said when we first came on, how I said that, unbeknownst to you, you are part of helping me push this vision, right? Well, our village is a part of helping us push the vision. What we want to see our children become, we know that it's going to take more than just us. And so providing them resources such as, their teachers, like we got to partner with them. Like my children teachers always knew that when they called me, I wasn't the parent to say, oh, no, not Simone. Oh, no, not
Right.
Imari. I
Right.
know I have some good kids, right? They've never caused me any major issues. But guess what? I still considered everything that a teacher said. But I did make sure that the door was open for my children to openly express how they felt about, the things that were being said. I didn't immediately believe the adult because he or she was an adult, but I
Right.
need them to know that I'm the biggest advocate for my children, right? And when my children are with you, I'm trusting that you're advocating for them as well. So we have to be a team, right? So let's talk, right? I don't want to argue. I don't want to talk at you. I don't want to fuss. I don't want to tell you how good little Jenny is. I don't want to do that because our children are children. And sometimes they do things that their friends do. They pick up things, like you said, the older siblings do, and they express it in a way that's not good. So going back to making sure that the children are solid and good, because we're raising somebody's wife, we're raising somebody's husband, we're raising somebody's boss, you know what I'm saying? Citizens, all of these things. And so we have to intentionally parent our children, especially nowadays. Like be intentional. That goes from how you dress, the company that you keep. You know what I'm saying? I don't bring any and everybody around my children, and my girls are dang. But my youngest is 17. My older two are grown, and they still don't meet everybody that I know. Like you don't get an opportunity to impact their life like that, right? If I can barely handle you, you definitely aren't about to be around my girls, and especially for me in dating, right? Men don't meet my daughters. Like if you meet my daughter or my daughters, you special.
You're serious. Special. We serious. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. You have to know.
I was laughing because when you said you take into account your children's opinion or their point of view of the interaction with teachers or whatnot. I remember getting whoopings. I know some of y'all that might be watching.
Yes.
And now they got no whoopings. I believe whoopings made me the man that I am today.
Yeah.
I'm an advocate for whooping your kids. Your kid need a whooping. You might not have seen what they did, but they need a whooping right now.
On GP. So, when you get off of here, just go
right on GP. But why I was laughing though is because I remember a specific situation where a teacher lied on me. All y'all parents are like, man, that teacher ain't lied on you. You did what that teacher said you did. That teacher lied on me. And when my mama found out that the teacher was actually lying, she told me, because she had whooped me about it. She told me, oh, that was just a whooping. What you want me to say sorry? I ain't gonna say sorry. That was just a whooping for something you got away with that I didn't catch you from. I was like, okay. All right, mama. Okay.
Can't win for losing.
Man, you know what I mean? So that's why I started laughing when you said that though.
I love it. And you know what? And I know sometimes it feels like we are speaking to a wall when we're talking to our children. It's like, do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? But I had an experience with my oldest daughter last week. She called me out of the blue like, hey, Mom, I just want to share some things with you. And it's because she's a basketball coach. She's coaching. She's over these children and she's dealing with these parents.
Wait, how old is your daughter that you're talking about right now?
She's 24.
Okay.
So she's 24. And she said, I really thought that all parents were like you. And I thought that, the things you taught me, like, this is what parents do.
You think everybody know that?
Yeah, and I'm like, what are you talking about? And she talked about how I made me and my ex-husband, how we encouraged them or made them stick to what they committed to. Like You signed up for this, and this is what you're going to do. It was so much that she shared with me on that call that made me say, she get it. They get it when they're younger, but it comes out when they're older and they're experiencing things that remind them of it. So I want to say to the parents, like, trust what you're putting in your children, but should you trust what you're putting in your children? I'm going to say that again. Trust what you're putting in your children, but should you trust what you're putting in your children? So again, be very intentional about how you're parenting and what you're doing around them and for them.
So that was a little bit of reinforcement for you, like, okay, I'm on the right track. She got it now. Absolutely.
She got it. She got. I mean, she's 24, but but she got it. So this is good. I love the fact that we are including the children in this talk, because too often we're looking past the fact that sometimes it starts at childhood. You know, absolutely. Your actions as an adult are a result of your reactions as an adult are a result of your actions as a child. You know, right. And so I think it's very important that we keep that we keep that going. So I mean, you've said enough. So I know you feel that it was very beneficial going to counseling, very beneficial. And so, but what are your thoughts today? Like, because it sounds like you don't mind advocating for counseling and knowing the fact that you went in to, hopefully fix your marriage, but that wasn't it. There were some things in you that got fixed as an individual. Like, what are your thoughts about that? Like, what would you share with the viewers?
Well, I think a lot of people just have a biased opinion on counseling for whatever the situation may be. Like, you're not going to see a shrink. They're not going to put you on meds, or, I mean, unless you need some meds, you know what I mean? But that's not for everybody. You know what I mean? Yeah. Sometimes you can hold stuff in to where it starts affecting you in such a negative manner and you don't even realize it. Yeah. Like, we're human beings. We're social people by nature. And in the age of social media, that's not really socializing. Everybody just tell the good stuff. You know what I mean?
That's it.
Like, you just on there flossing and high signing and doing all that, but nobody on there talking about, I had a rough day at work. I didn't think I was going to make it through. Or these kids is getting on my last nerves. Somebody come help me. You know, real like nobody shares those type of things on social media. And these are the things that you normally would go talk to your big mama about. Or confide in your brother or your sister, or, you know what I mean? Whatever the situation may be. Like, my children are my mom's only grandkids. Okay. Right? So, I'm looking for some nieces and nephews around here soon. If my brothers and sisters is watching, come on now, stop playing. But with that being said, we don't really have nobody to just, like, me and my wife, like, let's just say, for instance, we want to go out on a date. We don't get to do that too often because, for one, we got 5 kids. Our oldest, who's 18, she's off to college, so it ain't like we got no babysitter. You know what I mean? So it's just a lot of different little nuances like that when you do go to counseling and you seek counseling, it's somebody for you to talk to. It's somebody for you to just let it out. Whatever just been bothering you, whatever it might be, it just let it out, And counseling don't always have to be talking to somebody. What I found through me communicating with my wife is a lot of times when she might feel overwhelmed, her counseling is her notepad. She might just sit down and just write down the things that she's thinking and stuff that she's being overwhelmed with right now, and that'll offer some type of relief for whatever she's going through at that time. So it don't always have to be you talking to your pastor or you going to seek individual counseling or family counseling. Sometimes it might just be whatever's therapeutic to you. That could be a form of counseling. Yeah. I try to make time at least once a week for my wife to the kids is just out the way.
I love it.
Here you go, babe. Go take a hot bath, do your thing. I bought her this little thing to where she can prop her phone up on the little thing across the bathtub. And she's sitting there chilling for however long her heart desires.
I love it.
Because that's her little personal time to clear her mental space and, you know what I mean, just get things in order. And I need time like that too myself. You know what I mean? And I think men don't a lot of men don't want to admit that. You know what I mean?
Self-care.
It is what it is. You know what I mean? My
Mm-hmm.
wife asked me, and I'm gonna take a little turn for the worse right now. My wife asked me why I sit on the toilet so long. That's my me time. That's
Yes.
my me time. You know what I mean? Y'all leave me
Yes.
alone. I know you ain't finna come in here and bother me because you don't want to smell what it was going on in here. So this
Right.
is my
Right.
me time.
This is
You
where
know what
I'm
I mean?
gonna be.
This my me time. So I might be scrolling on social media or playing a little game on my phone, or I might just be sitting there just gathering my thoughts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Plotting and planning and figuring out what's gonna be my next move on how I'm gonna lead my family to the promised land, or whatever business venture I might be thinking about, or whatever the situation may be. This is my me time. Everybody need that, and
Yeah.
sometimes counseling can kind of gear you toward that direction. To us as men, sometimes we kind of try to bear too much weight when you in a good relationship. Your woman ain't gonna. Let me get closer to the camera real quick.
Get on in
When you
there.
in a good relationship, your woman ain't gonna let you bear all that weight by yourself, bro. She ain't gonna let you. She gonna have your back, and she gonna make sure that y'all pulling in the same direction. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? So with
Mm-hmm.
that being said, I got a strong one on my team. I love my wife, man. I try to match her grind. She be trying to out hustle me, but she ain't gonna do it though. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just what we do.
I
So
love it.
you know,
I love it because I was definitely going to shift a bit before we end with how do you think anything that was gathered uh, in those counseling sessions, do you think anything that was gathered at that time, who you have become or who you became as a result of those sessions, are you using any of that today in your marriage?
absolutely, absolutely. Um, I think one of the biggest things that one of the things that hit home with this particular counselor, because I actually went and saw it was two different therapists, and one that hit home the most was this gentleman asked me, "Do you know your wife, or do you really know her?"
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I had to, like you said earlier, I had to look in the mirror and like honestly tell myself, like, no, you really don't.
Wow.
And that was troubling to me at the time. But
Right.
going into my new relationship, which led into my new marriage, you know, I said I need to know this woman, like really, really, really know this woman, to the point to where before we even got married, we went to couples counseling with our current pastor, who's the same pastor who actually said our vows and married us. That we made sure we made a point to go to couples counseling, and he was awesome about the whole situation, to where the different um, exercises that he had us doing
Mm-hmm.
to truly get to know one another. I think a lot of issues that people have in relationships is you really don't know the person that you laying down with. You
Yeah.
really don't know the person that you have in a relationship with. It could be superficial, or it could be this person is just like not really allowing you, whether if it's from them masking some pain from their past, to where they're not fully opening up to you to allow you to know who the real them are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
can you honestly sit back and say, do you know what the end all be all is for your wife or for your husband? Do you know what your husband or your wife is not going to tolerate? Point blank, period. This will not be tolerated. I am not going to accept this, period. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that was one of the exercises that our pastor had us do, is what are your expectations?
Yeah.
That's the key word, expectations. I
Mm-hmm.
was always taught that when you have high expectations on somebody, that lead to catastrophic failures because they
Disappointment.
can't live
Yeah.
those expectations. But that's not true. The
Right.
reason why that leads to catastrophic failures is because that individual didn't know what your expectations were to begin with.
Yes.
For them
Mm-hmm.
to make a decision, if I'm capable of living up to those expectations and I'm gonna keep rocking with you, or you know
That's it.
what, you asking for too much, so I'm going this way. You know what I mean?
That's good.
So when me and
Yeah.
my wife sat down and we set those expectations, if I remember correctly, one of my expectations was like, I rarely work less than 10 to 12 hours a day. So I want to come home to a hot meal. You know what I mean? Um, so that was one of my expectations. One of her
Mm-hmm.
expectations was, well, if you're gonna be working all these long hours and you expect for me to have a hot meal, then I'm gonna need you to help with the laundry. You know what I mean? So we were setting boundaries. We were setting
Right.
expectations to where it's just like, okay, you know what? That's a fair trade. I can
Yeah.
do laundry on the weekend on my off day and still be watching football, watching basketball,
Yeah.
clothes. Like it is what it is. We a team. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that was a great thing. And I suggest that same thing for anybody who's thinking about getting married, or if you in a long-term relationship and you feel like you hitting some bumps in the road, because everybody do, is to go to some type of counseling, a couples counseling. And you know, initially you're gonna have a individual session. Everybody gonna have an individual session or whatever, and then y'all have a session together. You know, and it was therapeutic for me. I
Yeah.
think that's the best word that I can put toward it. It was therapeutic. It was most definitely beneficial, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it.
Love
I
it.
really did.
I love it. I everything that you just said, like I sign off on all of that. I'm a big fan of premarital counseling, right? I one day one of my goals is to be an officiant. So I want to marry people,
Right.
couples, but there will be a prerequisite. You must do premarital counseling. Like it's mandatory. You know, I don't want because I'm signing off on this. That means I'm signing off on your mess, or
Right.
I haven't even sat down with you to say, like you said, your the counselor told you, you guys, this is not a good fit. Like I will be that person that say this is not a good fit before you
I was
even
so
step.
shocked when I tell you when that man told me that. I was like, whoa, like I thought we was trying to save this thing here. Like you know what I
Yeah,
mean? But I was so shocked. But
reality
he
sometimes
wasn't telling me
says,
nothing I didn't know already though.
yeah, yeah. You were just trying. You were just trying because of, like you said, and like I say all the time, you know, we're taught that divorce, you're hell bound if you get divorced, right? So
Right.
when I was going through my divorce, and before I even we filed for divorce, I was so afraid. You know, I was scared that I was disappointing God. I was letting him down. I was letting my family down. It was just all about what everybody was going to think and what they were going to say, you know. So
Right.
that was a tough season for me, you know, and I'm really, you know, grateful for the experience. It didn't feel good, but you know, who I am today as a result of all of the experience and the things that I had to go through, I'm good. And I said something with a lady today. We talked about pain and purpose, you know, and I said, you know, we looked at it as pain back then. Now we see the purpose in it. But to be
Right.
honest, even the pain was purpose, right? What changed? The pain didn't change. The pain did change. The incident, the circumstance didn't change. Our lens, right? So you going to counseling, your lens changed. You know who you were prior to going to counseling, not who you were because you still were the same person, but how you viewed things prior to going to counseling is completely different. I'm sure now after that experience, and so your children are reaping the benefits of it. You're reaping the benefits of it. Your wife, I'm sure every relationship that you or every person that you're connected to is reaping the benefits of it because you have become a better person as a result of it. So I'm just so grateful that you said yes to counseling, although your community frowned upon it. Like, man, you don't go tell them people your business to shrink. They don't know
But
nothing about you.
see, it's funny though because some of the same individuals that in my mind that might have frowned upon it, some of those same individuals will call me and be like, "Hey, bro, like I know you done did this or did that, and you went to counseling, you went through divorce, and now you happily married or whatever. Like, what you think about this situation, bro? How you think I should handle this? Like, they
Mm-hmm.
confide in me like I'm a counselor now. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah.
So
You are.
which I welcome that. So
Yeah,
if anybody who has confided in me who's watching this, I'm not talking about you directly, bro. Like, call me if you need some advice, whatever the situation may be. Um, but it is what it is, man. Like I said before, I'm more than happy to be a part of somebody's village to try to steer them in the right direction. I would never give nobody some advice that I wouldn't follow myself personally.
yeah.
And if I feel like I couldn't help you, I'm gonna try to turn you in a direction to where somebody that can.
Absolutely, absolutely, and thank you for that as well. So we are up on our hour. I want to again say thank you for saying yes, for being on here,
My pleasure.
um,
We
and
got to do it
sharing.
again.
Absolutely, absolutely. Sharing all that you've shared. I know that something was said tonight that if people gave themselves permission to take it in, they'll be able to use it moving forward. I always say that I want to go home with these people that's looking, right? And when I say I want to go home with you, I want something to be said that reminds you, right? When you make these decisions or you're about to move a certain way, you're reminded of something that I said or my guest said, and you're like, "Ooh, okay." I see that now. Where
Right.
before maybe it went over your head. But when we know better, we should do better. And as you said, we're moving all excuses. We're taking all excuses away, and so because we are being transparent with our stuff. I believe that our transparency is somebody's road to recovery. You don't have to go through these things by yourself. We're here. You
Right.
have Mr. Devon that's like, hey, listen, holler at your boy. Whatever advice I have, I'm going to give. And if I don't, I'm going to steer you in the direction where you can go and get it. That's what we have to use our resources. Everything that you need is in you or right at your fingertips. And I claim that Make It Rise is right at your fingertips. Anything that you all need from us, we are here to pray with you, to hold your hand, to cry with you, to give you advice, just to listen. Sometimes we just want to get it out, right? Like, I don't really need you to say anything. Just let me get this out so that I can go home and do what I need to do. But right now, I need to talk.
Right.
So,
That
Devon, is
was
there any?
that
What
was
you say?
probably one of the things of my first session. I
Uh-huh.
was kind of looking for some advice, and like I'm doing all the talking. I'm like, hold on, I just paid this man this little copay or whatever through my insurance, and he ain't even telling me nothing. He just listening. I'm like, hold
Right.
on,
He was
but
trying to gather.
exactly.
I love it. Is there anything that you would like to leave with I was gonna say the listeners, the viewers, any last comments or advice that you'd give?
Um, what's on my heart right now is ultimately that there is life after divorce. So if there's somebody who's watching this right now and you feel in your heart that you are in a relationship that is just like no good for you, point blank period, whether if it's an abusive relationship, and it's not always physical, there are forms of mental abuse. And yes, men do go through mental abuse too. Bro, if your wife just talking down on you 100% of the time, bro, and just making you feel like a piece of crap. Ladies, if your man is making you feel like a piece of crap, you a queen, you a king, whatever the situation may be. Like, that gut feeling that you got in the bottom of your heart. If you cringe every time your family members come around because you scared of what your spouse is gonna do to embarrass you in front of them, I've been through it, bro. I've been through it, sis. So whoever going through the same thing, like, don't worry about what nobody else gonna say. I just told my son that earlier. Don't worry about what nobody else got to say about your relationship, because they shouldn't be in your business in the first place. And if you ain't put God first, your relationship is bound to fail. And that's just what I'm gonna end with right there.
But that's enough. That is enough. If you don't put God first, your relationship is bound to fail at some point. So
Absolutely.
thank you, Mr. Devine. I appreciate you. All of your words were, man, this was good. Like you said, we have to do it again. I have
Absolutely.
another series coming up in a couple of months where I'm talking to some women and men, and we're talking about dating after divorce. But and the acronym of that is DAD. And what we're really focusing on is what your first example should have been of what a husband is, to protect and
Mm-hmm.
to cover and all of those things, your dad, your father. So there are going to be some women and men on that's going to share some stuff that, some good, some not so good,
Right.
but they had to create and develop. It helped create and develop who they are today. Some of them had to go to counseling, as a result of absentee fathers. Some
Right.
of them had the perfect example of what a man is, of what a husband should be, but they chose to do other things. So I'm excited about that series. So you guys, y'all make sure y'all come back. You follow. Go to Make It Rise on Instagram or Facebook, and make sure you follow so that you can stay up to date with all of the events that we have coming up, the things that we're going to be doing. I'm here to serve you, and I hope that you are available for all of the things that we're going to be sharing. Again, Devon, I want to say thank you.
My
I
pleasure.
love you
Thank you for
guys.
having me. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'll be talking to you soon.
All right. Thank you.
Bye, you guys.
All right now.